They're ready for you, David. Please begin.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And I kind of feel a little Mormonish today, but hey. I actually want to start today off with a little question before we dive back in to the overhauling of Straight America and after the ball, as well as another article that I found. You know, the article that we've read along with the overhauling of Straight America was in 2004. Well, I found another publication from 2003 that talks about how the overhauling of Straight America, the homosexual agenda, is working. But I want to start today off with a bit of a question, right? It's a dilemma. And I want to ask you all, I want to ask you what your opinion is. If I'm overweight and I identify as skinny, does that make me trans slender? Or how about if I was already skinny and I am still skinny and I identify as skinny, does that make me cis slender? You still got to watch out for those trans fats though, right? So I asked this question because, yeah, it's comical. But what it does is it shows the ridiculousness of all this nonsense going on with trans this and trans that and trans fats and transgender and trans slender and trans. It's getting ridiculous. But how do we, because you know the government is not going to take back the extra special rights that they've given to the LGBT movement unless they're forced to, because those very rights, those special extra rights that they've given to the LGBT movement actually are oppressing and suppressing and violating the rights of the ex-LGBT community. You know, a lot of people don't know about the ex-LGBT community, but, you know, we just say, okay, so you're free from sin, move on. But that's not really what it all comes down to, right? Because we wouldn't give drug addicts special or extra rights to be drug addicts, because that would what? Entail it would oppress and violate those who are no longer drug addicts, right? Those who fall under that such were some of you. Well, I fall under such were some of you. And I'm getting a call right now, but I'm not going to take that call. But I will call him back. I will just let him know doing my show. All right. Actually, he was getting 2 calls in. How about that? Figures at 9 a.m. I get a phone call. Nobody calls me any other time. But so when we look at this, right, we see that, hey, if there is an ex-LGBT community, then wouldn't giving special or extra rights to the LGBT community violate them? Because what it ultimately does is it tries to silence. You know, how can you want to silence one community of people by giving another community of people extra or special rights? And, you know, I'm actually going to be diving into this a whole lot and doing a lot of research on this. And I'm reaching out to specific people who have been in this battle for a long time, because I think that this is probably, in the way my mind works, right? I'm seeing this as the only way to have those extra special rights removed, because they're not just going to pop up and say, okay, we're going to take this back. You can't have this anymore. But if these rights are violating the rights of another group of people, then I think they can. Or how about we go to the LGBT movement and say, we want to add another letter to your ever-growing movement, right? We want to be a part of your community, because then they couldn't fight for special or extra rights because they'd have to consider all, right? So we want it to be the LGBTQX movement or community, because there are those of us who are ex homosexual, we're ex transgender, right? We are ex queer, ex questioning. Hello. I don't know. Maybe it's just, maybe I've had too much coffee. I think I'm onto something here. And only time will tell, right? So we are going to dive back into the overhauling of straight America. Why? Because it's really important. It is really important that everybody out there, not just who's watching, but who may watch this video, that they know the truth, that they see what this movement is up to, that they see the many different people that this is affecting, namely your children and your grandchildren. I mean, really. Lord have mercy. So we are going to dive into it. And I'm just making sure we are up and running on the live on the website, which we now are. And yes, this is my Mormon look for the day. So it is what it is. Right? If bearded men can put on makeup and prom dresses and go into the library, I can wear my white shirt and tie and say I look like a Mormon. If I feel like a Mormon today, they can feel like a woman. Well, maybe I'm identifying as a Mormon today. Although I don't think I'd do that. Anyway, I'm not going to get bogged down with all that, right? Because, yeah, I have that habit of just, all right. So before we go into number 5, right? This is a publication that I stumbled upon from 2003. 2003, called Family Concerns. And by the way, I'm not seeing any chat in my chat box for all of the platforms that are watching. So I will try to glance when I can at the live chat on Facebook and on YouTube. But I'm not getting any chat in my StreamYard, which doesn't surprise me how StreamYard and Restream have been having technical difficulties only with my account, right? All right, so let's look at Family Concerns, Bridging the Information Gap. This is a publication of Concerned Women for America of Kansas. And remember, it's written in 2003. So they talked about the overhauling of straight America as well, right? A strategy that is working. And here we are 17 years later, and we can say that it was a strategy that worked. American Christians woke up August 8th to the news that the Episcopal House of Bishops had confirmed an openly gay man to be the newest bishop of the church. Many Episcopalians and other Christians are asking, how did this happen? All of those who go to mainline Protestant churches are facing similar battles, and many are dumbfounded by the fact that this issue is even being aired in light of clear scriptural teachings that denounce the practice of a homosexual lifestyle, particularly after one is made a new man in Christ. I can recall in the early days of my involvement with CWA going to a workshop at one of the conventions given by former CEO Jim Woodall on the homosexual agenda. At that time, we were presented with an article, The Overhauling of Straight America by Marshall Kirk and Erastus Pill, published in 1987 in the Homosexual Magazine Guide. Another treatise by Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen, After the Ball, How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s, and which was published in 1989. I remember being shocked at what was clearly a plan to sell homosexuality to America. And though I saved the material, I did not really take it all too seriously. That's the problem, because I believed that Americans would see through the strategy. These men, one of whom has a psychological background, Kirk, and another with Madison Avenue commercial advertising background, which was Madsen, knew that to succeed, there must be a desensitization of the American public concerning gays and gay rights. They set out to help the public view homosexual behavior with indifference and as a preference, not unlike a preference for a particular brand of coffee. They were not interested in Americans fully understanding the homosexual lifestyle. In fact, they did not want Americans to know what homosexuals do. They just wanted them to think of homosexuality as another option. Of course, we don't have to read the excerpts of their plan, right? Because we know we're going over the excerpts of their plan, right? Kirk and Madsen also describe an 8-point strategic evaluation to evaluate an advertisement's success in vilifying their opponents. Concerning an ad, How to Stop Child Abuse, designed by Kirk and Madsen to sell the idea of bi homosexual youth to middle America. The ad says the boy felt very different while growing up and realized he was gay. He was abused, thrown out of his home, and rejected by friends. The strategy? Jamming conversion desensitization. Now, this is a quote from Judith Reisman, Dr. Judith Reisman of the Reisman Institute. Build straight sympathy and protectiveness toward gays by portraying them as innocent victims of circumstance and bigotry. Teach readers, well, actually, this is a quote from the book, I'm sorry. But she quoted the book in one of her pieces, Crafting Bi Homosexual Youth. Okay, so build straight sympathy and protectiveness toward gays by portraying them as innocent victims of circumstance and bigotry. Teach readers that homosexuality is extremely common. They use Alfred Kinsey's fraudulent 10% homosexual claim. Comment, the headline catches the eye and trades on the perennial public hysteria about child abuse. This is how they did it. Then the copy turns the tables on straights by focusing on teens. The ad portrays gays as innocent and vulnerable, victimized and misunderstood, surprisingly numerous, yet not menacing. It also renders the anti-family charge absurd and hypocritical. Bullseye. That was just one of the many methods in which they used to dupe you, to fool you, to trick you, to blindside you. And yet people still don't see it. So number 5 of the overhauling of straight America is make the victimizers look bad. See, at a later stage of the media campaign for gay rights, long after other gay ads have become commonplace, the gay ads like we just discussed, right? It will be time to get tough with remaining opponents. To be blunt, they must be vilified. This will be all the more necessary because by that time, the entrenched enemy will have quadrupled its output of vitriol and disinformation. Our goal here is twofold. Their goal is twofold. First, we seek to replace the mainstream's self-righteous pride about its homophobia with shame and guilt. And then second, we intend to make the anti-gays look so nasty that average Americans will want to dissociate themselves from such types. I wonder if we really understand what that says and what it means. What it says and what it means is that there are other ways, other than just promoting that death style, that they have taken and accomplished at making the average American disassociate themselves, not only from the anti-homosexuals, but from Christians. See the Westboro Baptist Church, the people that are out there with the sign saying God hates fags, that all started. That was an LGBT plant, a demonic plant. That all started not from Christianity, but it all started from the opposite side to shine that dark, dark shadow upon Christianity and Christians. That's the reason the church is so split, because then came in the other extreme where they say God created you that way. Love, 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 love. Yeah. And who are we to say who somebody else can love? Wow. Lord have mercy. The public should be shown images of ranting homophobes whose secondary traits and beliefs disgust middle America. How are you going to see those images of ranting homophobes if you don't set them out there first to be seen? They say these images might include the Ku Klux Klan demanding that gays be burned alive or castrated, bigoted Southern ministers drooling with hysterical hatred to a degree that looks both comical and deranged, menacing punks, thugs, and convicts speaking coolly about the fags they have killed or would like to kill, a tour of Nazi concentration camps where homosexuals were tortured and gassed. And if we want to go back that far, let us also go directly to Hitler, who was part of the homosexual movement, okay, who only gassed and murdered effeminate and known homosexuals, but kept the masculine and unknown homosexuals protected for his own use. A campaign to vilify the victimizers is going to enrage our most fervid enemies, of course. But what else can we say? The shoe fits, and we should make them try it on for size with all of America watching. Now I want to go right to the book After the Ball. Page 276 of the book. This is a 400-page book, people. A 400-page book dedicated to the overhauling of straight America, on how America will conquer its fear of and hatred of gays in the 90s. This is a 400-page agenda. Why? Aren't straights the ones who have to change? Unfortunately, no. American straights are clearly at fault. How else to program somebody to believe it? Even those who don't engage in homosexual sin are still going to believe what they read and what they're told. American straights are clearly at fault because they've done their best, or should we say their damnedest, to herd us to this pass, imposing upon us a burden of deprivation and suffering, deserved by no one, least of all us. How else to convince the homosexuals, the ones that are engaging in that sin, that they're being deprived and that they're suffering deserved by, and that they're suffering something that is deserved by no one, especially them? Yet it would be, and indeed has been, a disastrous mistake to deny that we also are at fault in the matter, because we are. For 20 years, we've insisted that because straights treat us badly and not vice versa, it's their responsibility to change, not ours. That was unrealistic. Straights aren't going to change on their own. Pay attention to the words. Words matter. Straights aren't going to change on their own, at least not for the better. And this means that if we're to solve our problems, we must take action. And clever video spots and sound bites won't go all the way. Out of sheer expedience, we must start doing a lot of what we don't want to do and stop doing a lot of what we do want to do. Out of sheer expedience, we must start doing what we don't want to do, and we must stop doing what we do want to do. Because that's the only way we're going to get our point across, and that's the only way we're going to dupe these people. The great God of reality helps those who help themselves. To help ourselves, we must change ourselves, not congregate in gay ghettos, cut ugly capers, and thumb our collective nose at the outside world. This chapter's purpose, therefore, is constructive criticism. We outline 10 categories of misbehavior, things that many gays do, or that are praised and idealized by the gay leadership as part of our lifestyle, that can no longer be borne, and for two reasons. The thing, so what they're saying, listen, this is so mind eye-opening, right? They're saying that by being ourselves, by doing what comes natural to us in our fallen state, they didn't say all that, but I did. Okay, there's two reasons. There's two reasons that we can no longer let this be happen, because it makes us look bad, right? And causes us needless suffering, lowering the quality of life within the gay community. By being gay, this is what this really says. By being gay, and I am living proof. I know this for a fact. Being gay, that death style, does make us look bad. Okay, it did make me look bad, And it does make them look bad. Morally. And it did cause me needless suffering, and it lowered the quality of life, my quality of life, when I was a part of that community. They go on to say, we are aware that criticizing gays is massively politically incorrect. Isn't that something? It sure is biblically correct, though. That it has been decreed by the powers that be that gay is good, period. That anyone who would question our lifestyle is an enemy. Anyone who would question our lifestyle is an enemy. To be summarily suppressed. Anyone who questions our lifestyle, they're an enemy and they must be suppressed. They must be silenced. They must be shut up. See, this bad attitude too is a misbehavior and must also come to a screeching halt, starting right now. Caveat lector, the necessary limitations of our criticism. Compiling data for this chapter presented special difficulties. Gays are, understandably, more fond of documenting their mistreatment at the hands of straights than they are of documenting their own misdeeds, failures, and follies. It would be easier, and it was easier for me when I was a part of that death style, that community, right? To point out how I was being mistreated, how I was being looked down upon, right? It was easy for me to point that out. But it sure wasn't easy for me to talk about my own misdeeds, my own failures, my own follies, right? My own perversions. The material and impressions of this chapter are drawn largely from our own experiences, and necessarily so. There are no statistical reliable data from large-scale studies to validate our impressions of such imponderables, such hard-to-quantify attitudes, values, mindsets, and behavior. Wait, I thought that you were born that way, but they just admit that it's a behavior. I always knew homosexuality was a behavior. I chose to behave like that, and now I choose not to behave like that. However, we've tried to buttress our impressions wherever possible with other people's impressions, which we've collected via wide reading and, probably more important, literally thousands of hours of conversation over a period of years with hundreds of other gays. Our criticisms relate largely to gay men, admittedly a defect of this of the whole of this book. Wow. Some of the most negative aspects of the gay community are associated almost entirely with gay men, though both in widespread perception and actual fact, so our somewhat one-sided view does little violence to reality. Indeed, the gay community itself is a bit one-sided. It is at least 2/3 male. Lesbians may, in fact, consider it a compliment that we find less to fault in their behavior and values than we do in those of gay men. What we describe as the ugly aspects of gay life may, in fact, simply be the ugly aspects of human nature in general, and by no means limited to gays. See, we have to say that even though we're getting ready to air our dirty laundry, anybody could be guilty of this. Although we don't believe for a second that this is true, we're going to, for every aspect we will discuss, it's possible that we've pilloried gays unfairly in some instances for misbehaviors equally characteristic of straights. And again, another attempt at comparing homosexuals to as the opposite of heterosexuals. And we know, if we see things through God's lens, that the opposite of homosexual is redeemed, sanctified, freed from the bondage of sin. Okay, there is no opposite to heterosexuality. It is in our design. We are all created and designed heterosexual beings, and heterosexual is defined from the very beginning of creation as one man and one woman who will eventually become one flesh. All right, so even where this is so, however, it matters not a whit to our argument. Suppose straights are just as guilty as gays of misbehavior X. What of it? Gays, being oppressed, will nevertheless be punished more harshly for misbehavior X than will straights. As Avis once said, when you're number two, you have to try harder. We have to be not as good as straights, but actually better than to win acceptance. And after all, why should we set our personal standards as low as those of straight America? Think about it. A real problem is that you may decide we simply don't like gays very much and dismiss our work as the lubrications, I don't know, of a pair of cranks. That's a new word for me, all right? But the sad fact is, while we wish well to both gays and gayness as such, we have been disheartened and angered for many years by what we've seen of the blemished behavior of gays. What we just read right there, okay? What we just read right there is an admittance that even homosexuals think and believe that their behavior is not only wrong, but disgusting. Right? So, which takes me over to something else before I end the show, which takes me to, because they just said, even the homosexuals admitted that they were sick, right? So right here we see all the corporations that celebrate Gay Pride Month. And I'm not showing this because I want anybody to go and try to boycott anybody, right? Because we could never boycott all of the businesses that have become a part of what the world celebrates, okay? We could never boycott all of them. Now, do I listen? Do I promote boycotting Target? Absolutely. Do I promote boycotting small businesses that are homosexual, either owned or friendly? Absolutely. Because I know what they do with their money. I know how they recruit children, how they buy pornography, how they buy adult toys, all of these things, right? I know what they do with their money. So do I promote boycotting small businesses that are owned by homosexuals? Absolutely. But, however, I can't say boycott all these businesses, because we would be, what would we have to go to? Where would people shop? What would they do? And I know that there's an answer, but I mean, and most of them, like MTV, please, nobody should be watching that garbage anyway, right? VH1, nobody should be watching that garbage anyway, right? So most of them, they're a given. GameStop, come on now. What are you even playing video games for? But I'm not going to go there because I know a lot of people that do. But I wanted to go down to, there's a quote from Mae West's autobiography from 1959. Goodness had nothing to do with it. That's the autobiography. And Mae West says, in many ways, homosexuality is a danger to the entire social system of Western civilization. 1959, yo. Certainly a nation should be made aware of its presence without moral mottos and its effect on children recruited to it in their innocence. Now, of course, Mae West says, I had no objection to it as a cult of jaded inverts. involved only with themselves. It was its secret antisocial aspects I wanted to bring into the sun. As a private pressure group, it could and has infected whole nations. But 1959, Mae West knew its effects on children being recruited into it in their innocence. Wow. Oh man, there's so much information. There's so much stuff that I want to go over, that I want to talk about, that I want you all to see. And I don't want this to be story time. I don't want to just be reading to everybody, but I want you all so badly to see this material because it's important. It is so important that we see this material. And, listen, I don't do shows on Fridays normally, right? This would be my Friday. And I would normally be back Monday. But one, I'm not doing a show Monday morning because I'm going to be up in Presque Isle speaking to a group, a meeting, a gathering of brethren and some pastors and some ministry leads. And it may open up some doors for the ministry right here in Maine. But I am going to do a show tomorrow morning. Okay, I'm going to do a show tomorrow morning, and on the show tomorrow morning is going to be Coach Dave Daubenmeyer of Pass the Salt Ministries, who has taken on something that honestly I probably wouldn't even touch, not because I don't think it's important, but because I wouldn't even know how to begin taking on such a large, huge, humongous issue or burden. I wouldn't, and I honestly, I want to remain focused on what I'm doing at this moment, because I know that there are a lot of parents out there that are benefiting as they write to me and let me know. So, but I'm going to have Coach Dave Daubenmeyer on tomorrow morning. And because, I've watched a couple podcasts and shows, and I feel bad that, first of all, he's been misquoted numerous times, right? He's been misquoted by some people that the only benefit they have to misquoting him is to mock, make fun of, or try to water down or belittle Christianity and the truth. And I'm tired of people watering down and trying to silence the truth because their idea of Christianity means, well, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. No, you love the Jesus that Jesus said would be preached, which is the false Jesus, right? The fake one. You know the false gospel that Jesus said would be preached. And so yeah. So I want Coach Dave Daubenmeyer to come on the show tomorrow, and he has agreed to do it because I want him to be able to say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. He's taking on the NFL, Pepsi, and who knows who else is going to fall into that category for the pornography, for the porn that they showed at halftime at the end, the Super Bowl or whatever it was called. I don't watch football. But he's taking them on. And he's definitely going to be heard. And he has already been heard by hundreds and hundreds of podcast shows, stations, whatever, that normally wouldn't have anything to do with him because of the truth that he does speak. And Coach Dave Daubenmeyer and I don't agree on everything, but we don't have to, right? We don't have to agree on everything because his function may be a little more aggressive than my function, but it doesn't mean that we're not part of the same body and we need each other to continue to work together to keep the body functioning properly. Okay. Because I know some people that have a very passive function, and I'm okay with their passive function. I'm okay with the people's function who lay dormant until they're needed. I'm okay with that function as well, because guess what? We need every single part of the body to be functioning properly in their function, because if the kidney tried to do what the liver does, or if the lungs tried to do what the big toe did, then the body would fail, right? And Coach Dave Dogmeyer's lit a fire up under my feet quite a few times. So and he's actually the one who lit a fire up under my feet when we all went to the Senator Collins office, and all I had to do was open my mouth and outpoured the whole ex-LGBT or community being suppressed and silenced by the LGBT, by the special and extra rights that the LGBT community is given. You know, that fire that was lit, that was lit by Coach Dave Dobmeyer that morning. So, you know, we all need to be working together. We don't have to work together in the sense that we do what everybody else is doing. Okay, because there's a lot of things that other ministries do that I would not do. Okay, simply because I don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So what I am going to do is be unified with my brethren. You know, and I'll tell you where I learned this, and I know I'm like way over, but it's all good. I learned this over the last 10 years, right? However, I've really learned it since last August, since I went to Take on the World 2019. That's where I learned it, from the Take on the World community, family, right? A very diverse group of people, some who do not believe in the way others believe, and I mean strictly they don't. But what I also saw there wasn't only the diversity, but was the unity. The unity in which they all come together, right? And that was important to me. And that's what really made me be able to see that it doesn't matter if we all agree, but we all had better, as diverse as we are, we need to be unified. And the only way to be unified is to put down your own thoughts and feelings about stuff and just see a brother or a sister in need and be there for them. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and to Washington, D.C. out front of the Supreme Court and carry signs and run around and scream at people. You don't have to, you know. But if you're not going to, you can talk about it. You can promote it. You can help fund it. I mean, you know what? I want to go to Saturday, the 22nd of this month. I've wanted to go to the event called Rescue the Children at Kenyon College on the campus. They're having a drag queen transgender story thing with the book I Am Jazz, and they're having like kindergartners through fourth graders being brought to the college campus to hear stories read by a bunch of bearded men in drag. And I really wanted to go, and I said, you know what? It's not my budget. I can't do it. Somebody who doesn't go out, right, called me up and said, I'm not going out there, you know, but let me try to help you fund you getting there, right? And so we'll see, you know, if everything works out, I'm going. Because of somebody else who doesn't have my function, but is able to not only support it, but fund it. And that's how we all need to start working together. And so I reached out to Coach Dave Dobmeyer this morning. I asked him, I said, hey, would you be on the show tomorrow? It'll be a special show because I don't do shows on Friday. I said, because I want people to know that all of this garbage that these hosts of these podcasts and shows are just misquoting, completely and totally misquoting you. And that bothers me. You know, I used to watch Chad Prather. I used to watch his podcast on YouTube, right? I never really thought he was Christian, although he claims to be. I never really thought he was because his words, his deeds, and his actions show otherwise, right? But the other night, I tuned in for, and I haven't tuned in for a little while, but what it was is something hit me. I saw a video clip of him and I couldn't place. I was like, I know that face and I know that voice. And then I realized it was Chad Prather. So I clicked on his show the other night and he actually was talking about Coach Dave Dobmeyer of Pass Us Out Ministries, and he misquoted him and he mocked him. And he tried to like, to make it seem like the pornography and the disgusting perversions that took place on that stage and in the halftime of the Super Bowl NFL thing, that between J-Lo and Shakira, that it was okay. And he liked it. That made me want to turn him off because, one, his character was ruined for me anyway, because he became a liar by misquoting. He became a mocker of Christianity, which one should never be, because it's God that you're mocking. And sadly, it's probably because he was just reading the notes that one of his flunkies put together, and they purposely misquoted Dave Dobmeyer. And so but it doesn't matter if he was just reading his notes or not. Guess what? He needs to know what he's reading if he's reading it, you know, because he's no different than the mainstream media that lies and covers up and all that other garbage and makes stuff up, right? So I just had to say that because I was really ticked off about that. But anyway, I'm way over. Lord willing, I will see y'all in the morning, 9 a.m. Coach Dave Dobmeyer of Pass Us Out Ministries will be on in the morning. And thank you. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for supporting this ministry. Thank you for all that you do in the kingdom. Because remember, we're not building ministries, we're furthering the kingdom by tearing down the empire. And the empire that I speak of is the one that the enemy has built. And it's taken him hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years, right, to build this empire. And we're going to tear that nonsense down. Hallelujah. All right. Y'all remain blessed. I love you all. Hold on real quick. I'm going to give my sister Starla a wrench. Hey. Sherry, good to see you. Trevor, Maz Bringsby, I don't know you, but God bless you. Thank you for coming, for being here. And y'all remain blessed. And I love you. And from my Take on the World family, I'm going to see most of you physically, Lord willing, at Take on the World 2020 in Marengo, Ohio in August. I love you guys. Thanks. Peace.